Hello and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. I'm Dan Hall, one of your hosts. And if you like what you hear on this channel, be sure to subscribe to it. That helps our algorithm. One of the things I've been interested in for a long time, ever since I was 17 years of age, saw the Patterson Gimlin film, I've tried to figure out what Bigfoot, Sasquatch, is all about. And I just turned 74 here, and I'm here to say I have no idea what Sasquatch is, but I have somebody who could shed some insight to that, and that is Mel Skahan. So, Mel, welcome to Anomalies.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Sure, anytime. If I'm correct, you are a tribal member of the Yakima Nation. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, yes. I'm an enrolled member, tribal member of the Yakima Nation here in Central Washington.
Okay. And I used to live in Bellingham and got to know some people on the Lummi
No, no, let me, yes.
Reservation. Yeah, and I know that they have certain viewpoints about Sasquatch, like creatures that the white population doesn't have. So maybe we could start with that. So what are the Yakima people? How do they view Sasquatch? What is Sasquatch to them?
Well, to the Yakima, I mean, if you speak to most of the Pacific North tribes here, we're pretty much well similar in all the beliefs that they were here just at the same time we were, and then we became family way, 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 way back when, and we were nomadic, so we moved around with the foods, with the seasons, and one of the things that we became with them were protectors and also like stewards of the woods of our home areas. So we were protectors of everything. Everything here we consider connected, and so we care for everything that is here, from the trees to all the way down to the salmon that migrate every year.
Which is a much different perspective than white folks like me sometimes have. We don't have that necessarily compatible view of humans and the environment that Native people do. So I appreciate that. Now you've had, uh, were you a forester with
Yeah, my,
them?
my yeah, my whole career has been within forestry. I started at a very young age of 19, working for the U.S. Forest Service here in Washington State, and spent 8 years with them, ranging from a wildland firefighter to pre-sales, silviculture, recreation, and then I moved to the Yakima Reservation. I honed my skills off the reservation and went home, and then became a log scaler, wildland firefighter, forester, forestry tech, silviculture. I mean, you name it. That within all forestry practices, I was involved in a lot of things.
And I would guess that maybe some of those activities brought you into contact with this creature that we're talking about tonight. Would that be accurate?
Yes, 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 it is. I've heard stories when I was with the Forest Service in my young days, and the Columbia River Gorge in Skamania County was very active in my childhood, and it was very rural at the time. And I mean, it was a go between from Vancouver, Portland to the Columbia River Gorge into the Dalles, and traveling. If you wanted to go east along the Columbia River on the Washington side, then, very rural houses, very far apart, and a lot of sightings. And I used to live in the, excuse me, Beacon Rock area for the longest time, and could only say that I had one encounter, but one at night. I, my nearest neighbor was a half a mile away, and
Yeah.
so very dark, very quiet. And every night, e- even though I wasn't quite a full-on believer, because in order to believe in something, you'd have to know about it. You'd have to hear a lot of
Right. You have to
stories.
experience it
Yeah,
sometimes too.
an experience, yes. And so I heard a lot of stories when I worked for the Forest Service out of Carson, Washington, and but it's like, yeah, it was young, and it's like, yeah, well, sure there is. I've been out here for a couple of years. Sure, yeah, I'm a kid. I know it all. And being ignorant in that as it progressed through my Forest Service days, then I started hearing more and more, and even had some co-workers that have had experiences, people that I worked with closely, and and then people that I knew that had that were out camping, wildlife folks that would have to go out and stay out in certain areas, and I would hear stories from them about something walking around them and then following them, and but still not a full-on believer because of the lack of contact that I would have with them. And then on a fire in Central Washington, I was on a wildland firefighter with a group with my Forest Service friends, and we ran into a Yakima group off the reservation, and we had worked this area for about 4 or 5 nights, and then we turned it over to the tribal firefighters. And before that, there was this deep gully. It was dark. We worked nights. I'd walk back and forth just to check on my crew members, and nothing ever happened. I wasn't creeped out or anything. It was my job to be able to go out and make sure that my crew was safe. And then we turned it over to them, and then when that very next night, they had one of the guys had an encounter in that gully that I used to walk out of,
Mm.
and I was, I wasn't saying that I wish it was me. It was just like, wow. I mean, that's something for just to miss something like that one day. And he was just happened to walking down the first one out into this gully, and then the headlamp happened to catch some the shine from some eyes, and then as he moved the headlamp around, then that's when he saw uh, the forest person that was there.
So tell us more about an encounter that you had personally.
Oh boy, I've had many, and
Pick one
I,
that sticks in your mind.
the one, as I advanced. I mean, I've been doing this since the God, how long have I been doing it? So since about 1988, 1989, working my
Mhm.
Forest Service days, when I started hearing stories, and then really started to pick up interest in it, but just from the story aspect, not really looking for an encounter yet. And so advancing to um, about 5 years ago, I was camping with my wife, Christine, and we were going to go to a new area. And in this new area, we'd never been, but had passed by it many times, going back and forth, back from Seattle to Central Washington. So we decided I decided that, we were going to go here. And when I arrived, it was complete darkness, no other vehicles where I was at, and I didn't see or hear of any other activity in the area. So quiet. And when I pulled in there, backed into the spot, and at this time in my life, I have all the windows down and I have the sunroof open just so that I could hear if anything is outside when I'm driving up, a whistle or a whoop or a howl or a wood knock, and nothing on the way up. And then as I'm sitting there, reclined back in my seat, I could hear footsteps uh, across the road up the hill from where I'm parked. And so figuring it was a deer or an elk, some type of four-legged uh, animal that was moving around. But as I started listening, it was heavy, and it only sounded like two bipedal stepping. And as I listen, then I hear this, and closing my eyes, I'm like, all right, okay, I have contact with something that is not four-legged. And then I heard it again. And I could tell it was facing me, and the direction of the steps were walking towards me. And then I hear another voice higher in pitch. So I had two of them walking towards me, and I could hear them walking, and I hear both of them talking, coming right at me. And if you've ever heard stories of other encounters, people are always straining their ears because all they hear are footsteps and maybe a little grumble or a stick break or something tossed at them, not the full-on language that I was experiencing. And so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to them both come towards me, and then I could hear a vehicle off in the distance coming, driving up into the area. And I didn't know how far out it was, but I could hear the tires crunching on the gravel as it was driving in. And then that's when those two decided that they were going to divert from me and then go towards the road as it popped up into this area. And so I could hear them talking, footfalls, branches breaking. And then I got out of my car. I got out of my SUV and I walked up to the main road. And so they started walking. They were above the road, and I was behind them as they were walking towards the entrance of this area. So they're talking away really loud. And so I'm standing there listening. I'm walking with them, and I'm like, this is just, I don't know too many people that have had these type of encounters with them because, you don't sneak up on a Sasquatch, you don't sneak up on a Bigfoot, you don't sneak up on a forest person because, they know you're there. And for one, they're not going to let somebody like that sneak up or walk with them. And so the car stops, and there's two doors that I hear open, and then the guys, the two that are in front of me are going, blah, 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 blah. And then when the doors open, they go, they started whispering to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm here, they're there, and then the two guys are over here, and I could hear the two guys talking, and then these two were, and I'm like, I'm laughing because I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is the coolest thing ever. And Ron Moorhead sounds
Yeah, I was gonna say Sierra sounds.
the Sierra
Ron
sounds.
Moorhead.
It sounded just like that.
Mm.
And so, I mean, but not the angry one that you would hear in some
Right.
of the audio. These two, I figured, were youngsters in their teens that were cut loose, going down to the watering hole, get some water, and they were just talking back and forth. And so the two guys closed the doors, and then they left. And then they went from a whisper back to that, and I could hear the turn as they were talking at the direction of the vocals from here to here, and I mean, and then I was like, oh, they're going to head back to me, and here I am on the road, and I don't think they know I'm on the road. So I started walking back to my car on the gravel road, and they're up above, snap, 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 as they're walking, and then talking back and forth. And then I scuffed the ground, and then they stopped, and then it just got quiet. And I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I just stood still. And then they started vocalizing, talking with each other again. And so then that's when I started walking. And then they started walking. And I scuffed the ground again. And then they stopped. And I had to stop. And they were closing in on me because they have a longer stride than I do.
Right.
So when they started talking again, then I picked up my pace, and then I made it back to my vehicle, and I could still hear them coming. And that's when I made the decision. This is their area. I'm going to leave them alone. So I started up my vehicle and I drove up to the road. And then when I went by to where I thought they were, I just put my hand out the sunroof and I told them, I'll see you guys later. We'll come back later. This is all yours. You can have it back. And then I got back in the cell range and I called my wife and I told her, I'll tell you what's going on here and why I'm moving the spot.
Did was your wife a believer
Oh
in
yeah, yeah.
Sasquatch?
Oh yeah, my wife is a full on believer, and that's how we met. We met out on uh, expeditions and stuff like that here in
Really?
the Northwest. Yeah, and so we've been
Oh,
full
cool,
on believers together.
cool. We've had Ron Moorhead on our show, and as I recall, he had somebody analyze the Sierra sounds, and they said that what they were hearing was a language. It
That's
had all
exact.
the
That's
elements of
exactly
a
what I
language.
was listening to as well.
Yeah.
And we just finished up the Yakima Bigfoot conference and this last weekend, and I invited Ron Moorhead to our conference to speak, and so I got to tell him. I got to tell him my story too.
Cool. Cool. I've when I lived, like I said, I think I said, I lived in Bellingham for a year and got to know some people in the Lemhi Nation, and they had some very interesting stories about Sasquatch, including one. And just tell me if this sounds, if you've ever heard anything like this, that there was uh, a Lemhi tribal member that was abusing his girlfriend, and the story that was told basically was some Bigfoot like creatures confronted this guy over the abuse of his girlfriend and roughed him up a little bit. Now, when I heard that, I was like, come on, that sounds pretty strange. I don't know. What would be your reaction to that story?
Well, they're
I mean,
protectors, and
yeah,
as far as our unwritten laws is, one of them is never take negative energy into anywhere that you're going, especially at night. If this event happened at night, um, because you're attracting a lot of different things other than Sasquatch as well. So to have that negativity in the woods, uh, they, like I said, stated earlier, they're protectors. So protectors of people as well. And so, that's probably what happened was that they were protecting that woman.
so that's believable
Oh
in your
yeah,
mind.
yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, very interesting. Um, let's see what you know we've had so many different people with so many different viewpoints of Sasquatch on our show. I mean, we've had anthropologists. I think you may have known Jeff Meldrum,
Oh yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
just passed
Yes, he was
here
supposed to
not too
speak
long
at our
ago.
conference this year as well, and we this was going to be his second appearance with us, and then we had gotten the news, and we had a really good uh, memorial for him at the conference.
Good,
Mhm.
good. So he's a kind of guy that, if I characterize his viewpoint correctly, he believes that Sasquatch is like a relic hominid, like a Gigantopithecus blackie. So you got that camp. And then you've got some people we interviewed. I don't know if you're familiar with Stan Gordon. He's a paranormal researcher in Pennsylvania. And he talked about, and this gets kind of far out there, the interaction between Sasquatches and UFOs. So there's this whole paranormal kind of a perspective. And I think, I don't know which of the movies that you were in that Brett did, but he did one on just basic Sasquatch. And then A Flash of Beauty. I think that was the,
Correct. Yeah, 1 and 2. I mean, yes.
yeah. And
The
one had more of a paranormal aspect to it. So,
yeah, that was the second one. Yes.
yeah. So tell me what your feelings are about what the heck Sasquatch is.
Well, you know, if what I I didn't learn from my elders was this respect aspect that you will learn more by sitting there and becoming. If you make that connection while you're out in the woods, you're going to make the connection with them, and it's not going to be up front. It could be them coming up to you, surrounding you, or walking around you, and then what they call, I guess, mind speaking to you, that type of
Mhm.
connection. And that's happened. And I've seen the orbs, which up until a couple of years ago, I never really believed in because it didn't. I never had those experiences 25 years prior to that, and but like I said, I continue to open myself to different things and people um, teaching me how to connect with the land itself by going out to rocks and trees and the rivers, and then going out there and centering myself and leaving this world, leaving the lights, leaving all the electricity, and going out there and then connecting with the ground. And then one thing that we're taught when we're young is to always go out and introduce yourself, and not just introduce yourself, but you could say, my name's Daniel Hall, and that's it. But when you say, I'm Daniel Hall, my mother is, and my father is, and
All
my
right.
grandparents on both sides, then we know who, then it expands out. If you're into an older elder audience, then those people, oh yeah, I knew your great grandfather or something. Now I know your people. So that's what we do as that's what I do every time I go out to the woods, is I introduce myself that way. That way they know who I am and where I come from. And to make that type of connection also opens yourself up to making that type of communication, because they've already known you're coming into the area. They already know who you are, but you've got to be respectful to them to let them know who you are, your intentions of why you're there. And then once you make that and introduce yourself, that respect is right there for the both of you. And then they're freely to move around. And then when you're centered enough, they will make that connection with you. And they've called me by name, and
Hmm.
I've had I have a friend, and we shared this at the Yakima conference. I've known her for a little while, and but we've have the same ideas. We have the same type of connections with them, and we had gone on a walk of an area that she frequents a lot and has had interactions with them. So she was telling me about the different types of things that were going on, and then as I'm standing there listening to her, a warm wave started coming at me from the right, and it wasn't frightening, it wasn't chilling. It was warmth and inviting, and I'm trying to figure out what this is, and I could actually see it go by, these little wavelengths, and I'm trying to figure it out because she's talking, my wife is in front of me, and then it told me I needed to walk towards her. You need to walk towards Barb, and I'm looking around trying to figure out who said that. No,
Yeah.
nobody else was, Barb was still talking, my wife is still looking at her, so it wasn't them. And then it said it again, you need to walk towards Barb, and it was plain English. It wasn't, it was a normal voice, and it wasn't deep dark or anything like that. And then I started walking towards Barb, and this wave kept coming at me from the right. And when I passed my wife, I looked at her to see if, she would feel it, and she never did. And then as I walked past her, then it told me, you need to give her a hug.
Wow.
And so I said, okay. So I'm still walking towards her, and I'm watching Barb, and Barb is doing this, looking at me as she's talking, trying to figure out what I'm doing. And so as I get closer to her, she, does this, and uh, I said to her, they want me to give you a hug. And then she goes, okay. And so I gave her a hug, and I hugged her, and then they said, you need to tell her thank you. And so as I'm hugging her, and I told her, I said, they want me to tell you thank you.
Wow.
And then I let go, and then I pulled back, and then she goes, oh, that was great. That was sweet. And then she looked up the hillside and went, thank you. And so I was backing away, and then we got a vocalization from up the hill. This, ah, and all three of us heard that. And then we put our hands up in the air and told them thank you, and then we walked out. So it
Cool.
so it happens. Those type of connections will happen to you once open your mind and welcome and introduce and respect and do all this without lessons I've learned a long time ago. Don't pursue, don't record, don't take anything, because I learned that lesson a long time ago. And so as of a decade ago, I don't do any of that anymore.
And
I
why
just
why not? No. Why don't you like try to record vocalizations or whatever? Why?
because as my elders told me, is that you're never going to record, you're never ever going to get anything on pictures or film or anything like that. And they were right, because I attempted to take pictures of footprints in the snow that were clear, a trackway that I follow for a mile and a half, and took a lot of pictures, measurements, and everything. Went down to get it developed, and
Really?
nothing showed up. And so that began to sink in that I need to start listening to my elders. But I still whistled at night. I still would knock at night, and I would walk around at night when I was told not to. And then things started. Things didn't start happening to me until I found a nest one time out in the woods, and this nest looked like a big giant donut, and something had sat in it. And as I'm looking at it as it's woven together, I mean, you could practically pick this thing up and hike it back down to your truck. And so I got down and I looked in it, and I found hairs inside where the material was woven. And so I pulled a few of the hairs out, and I put them. I made a little envelope out of a piece of paper that I had, put them in there, and then we walked out. And then people would come to me and want to see them. My two coworkers that were with me, told the story and everything like that, if they were near me when people were coming up. And then I attended a hair. Excuse me. I attended a ceremony of a spirit that was bothering a girl in the house. And so they invited this medicine man from Oklahoma in, and he came in and did had certain rules and everything that we had to follow. We cut the electricity off the house. We darkened the windows. We sat on the floor, and we waited for the LEDs to cool off. He wanted zero light, so we had to wait about 15 minutes before it went completely dark. And so he started his first song loud, listening to it. There's about 20 people all the way around, and there's gifts for everybody in attendance, because that's what we do. We pay, that's how you pay the people that come help you. And then you
Mm-hmm.
also provide a meal. So there was food in the center of the floor. So we sat against the walls, the four walls, the three walls, because they were on one. And so when the second song started, um, complete darkness, no electricity, but there was a vibration that came from him that was in the floor, and you can hear it first, and then you felt it as it went underneath you, and then you could feel it and hear it, and then it went into the wall, and then up into the ceiling, and then it was gone. And so I'm like freaking out because I've never been through anything like this before.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I whispered to the person on the left of me, and I asked if the floors were vibrating, and they said yes. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, so don't freak out. So the third song started, and then that's when I heard him in the far back room. The song was louder, the song was stronger, the beat on the drums were faster, and then I heard this. And I'm listening. There was dark. Closed my eyes. I said, I knew what I heard, and I said, if I projected out, if you are who I think you are, you'll whoop again. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? Because his instructions were, you'll have relatives, friends, anybody that has passed on. These people are going to be invited in to help guide the spirit out rather than force it out. And so when I heard that, he started walking down the hallway into the living room. Boom, 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 boom. And then I'm listening to him hit the floor with his feet as he's walking in. And then when he gets into the living room, then he starts dancing or jumping in front of me. And I can hear boom, boom, boom to the beat of the drum. Boom, boom. He's going to the right, he's going to the left, and he's working his way towards me. And then he started vocalizing right at me, this loud, and he's nonstop, and he's jumping, and he's vocalizing at me, and I'm like this, and I didn't know what to do, because he said people to help guide the spirit out, but what I had in front of me was not human, was not friend,
Right.
was not friends,
Right.
was not my mom, was not my brother, was not my aunts. This was a full-on sports person, Sasquatch, doing this in front of me, just dancing as this song was going on. And he's letting me have it, vocalizing at me, and he's jumping. And then when the song started to end, then he quit dancing, and then he walked back down the hallway. And then the song was over, and then he was gone. And then there was a calming song afterwards, which ended, and then he instructed the lights to come on. And everybody adjusted to the light and everything. And then he started going around the room saying, you had this, you had that, you had that. And he was, everybody was, yeah, yeah. And so he was spot on with everybody of who visited who in that room. And how does he know this? Because he was, drumming and singing. And so, his level of communication and awareness to everything that was going on in that room, and it was complete darkness, was
Mm.
amazed me. And so he gets to me and he points at me and he goes, you have something attached to you that you shouldn't. And so thinking, he goes, you do something that you're not supposed to be doing. You hunt, you chase, and you're not supposed to be doing that. And he was here. And he goes, you need to see me after this, and I will give you the steps to correct your situation, because if you don't, then he'll if he can't get to you, then he's going to get to your family. He's going to get to your daughters, your young ones. And I met with him afterwards. He gave me the steps, and it took me a couple of weeks to gather everything. And he says, you don't tell anybody when you're going. You just walk out of the house and you go back to the location where you collected these hairs, and then you do this, and then you should be good. So I'm driving up there, and I park, and then put my backpack on, and then I walk down to the location of where I collected the hairs, and then I lay everything out, and then I start to do the ceremony he wanted me to do. And then lastly, I brought the hairs out, and then I put them on on this log, and then I was done. And so I stepped away and I started packing everything up. And then, I wasn't supposed to do this, but um, I I projected out. I go, I've done everything that you've asked me to do, and are we good? Are we okay? And then I get a vocalization down the hill from where I'm at, this long, whoa. And that cleared up my situation, what I did wrong with him. And because he didn't want to be known, is what he told me. Didn't want no DNA tests or anything. He didn't want to be out there.
So, are you familiar with Melba Ketchum?
Yes.
Yeah, what do you think of her work?
I other than I don't usually follow anybody's work because it muddles what I do. I
Right.
mean, I have friends that bring me books, share videos with me, and I'll do that for them. But um, I mainly go out to learn from me what the steps that I've learned, and if I start thinking about this and that and that goes as I was before, because I needed that information because back on the reservation, the tribal elders were not helping me. And so I sought the outside help. And then that's when I started gathering all this information, but I was still not clear what the best way was to go. But the path that I'm currently on, I stay on that path, and I try not to, bring whatever I hear from everybody else. So I've learned to um, look within myself when I'm out there,
And that
because
would exclude stuff like Melba Ketchum has done. I
yes,
mean, she's kind of controversial, but
yeah, but we're all in this together, and we all learn from each other. I mean, the reason I'm on your podcast is because the events that have happened to me, then share with everybody else. And I'm not here to change anybody's minds or beliefs. And if people don't believe what has happened to me, then that's fine too. I mean, I know what I've been through, and it's been a fun ride.
yeah, sounds like it has been. Um, I think I might have alluded to this before, but we had a guy by the name of Stan Gordon on, who was a UFO researcher in Pennsylvania, and he says there's a big connection between Sasquatches and UFOs. What would you say to that? Have you had any experience that would validate that?
I I've had two interesting things happen to me this year. One involved viewing one through a thermal with and two other people, and what we experienced, other than the 7'8" Sasquatch that was hiding behind the tree, was a lot of distortion and everything in this picture, and he was protecting us from a portal.
Hmm.
And from what I learned from some intuitive friends that I've shared this picture with, is that there were two two unknown things that were around this portal. And so, we've been told, well, I've been told that, they're the protectors of us if we go near these things. And so what happened was, before the gentleman that was with me found him or saw him, we experienced, and when I'm out in the woods and I know that they're there, they kind of let me have a little buzz on the top of my head. And if they really don't want me in any area, then they full on give me the full electrical, no, don't come any closer. And then I let anybody know that is with me that, we need to turn around, that they don't want us near them. But this event that happened to the three of us was, my head started buzzing, and then a slight scan of the body because the buzzing went throughout my whole body. And then the person across from me started feeling this little tingling, buzzing sensation, like about 20 seconds after I brought it up. And then the third guy hadn't been through it yet, but he started feeling it throughout his body. And then the third person on my left, he started feeling it, and it was coming in from his back and then working up and down. Mine had dissipated. His was starting to leave, and then the third guy was still going through it. And, so he let us know before we saw him that he wanted to know who we were. And he wanted us to let us know that, he was there. And I told the other two that this has happened to me before, that they let me know that they're there. And so we just stood in that circle, and we didn't go anywhere else other than circling around the thermal and then actually seeing him. And it'd take me a while but I can bring up the picture but the little thermal that I had didn't, when you use the capture button, it doesn't, it's very pixelated. So it's a handheld one that's got a 2-inch screen on it. So I just put my phone over the top of it. And I don't know if you can see that, but you could see the head.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
And then down there, you can see the hand.
Yes. Can see that.
And so that was that was him protecting us from going any closer up the road towards where that portal was located.
So in that case, portals are negative, viewed as someplace you don't want to go.
No, nothing that you want to get involved with. No.
Okay, very interesting. Wow. So this has been an education for me to just listen to what you have to say. I used to teach sociology in a prior life,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the first things you know or you learn about sociology is it's reality is socially constructed. In other words, reality is what people say it is. Well, there's a lot of stuff that people are saying out there, whether it be about politics or other things, that just isn't true. But there are a lot of people that are convinced otherwise. And I think that probably applies to Sasquatch as well. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people who would say Sasquatch doesn't exist, but you're a perfect example where that's BS. That's
Well,
not true.
yeah. I mean, yeah, and they can have their belief system and everything, and everybody changes that belief system when an event happens to them. Any event. I mean, I've never been in a car crash. Oh, car crash, and all of a sudden you're tweaked and you have to do all this, rehab and everything. I've never seen a UFO. It's just, and like I said, if people want to, they want to listen to my ideas or listen to the way I approach things, it's not going to be the same for them. I mean, so it's just your advancement through what you have done and the corrections that you have done over time to make sure that you don't dwell off on all these different paths that take you someplace. You want to stay true to what they are telling you. And they finally got to me inside and in here to be able to tell me to stay on this path. I can I can say items about them, and I can't go too far with some of the explanations that I do, because if I do, then I upset my relationship with them. And I have a woman that I work with who I wanted to uh, share her events that she's experienced. A non-believer, has never had any type of encounters, and all of a sudden she's got a clan around her, and they invite her in. She becomes part of them. They give her a song, they give her a dance, and then she shares that song, she shares that dance with only close people that will understand. But twice now, and the last time I asked, I go, do you think they're ready to share who they are with these people? And I'm on the phone with her, and then I just got full on, just as when I asked that question, it just, and
Hmm.
my head was buzzing like crazy. And I told her, I said, I got my answer. The answer is no.
Pretty obviously, no.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just, the part of the world is not ready. Part of this community is not ready for what people are going through. And
Yeah.
so at some point they'll reach that level, and it'll take some time.
Um, Going back to a friend of mine on the Lummi Reservation who was not native, but she worked for the tribe as a drug alcohol counselor, Sherry Mulholland, who's just a really good friend of mine. She had 3 encounters with Sasquatch, and some of those were like she came out of her office. This is again up on the res, and there's a Sasquatch standing just off of the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I spent probably a year out there on the reservation trying to see some evidence of Sasquatch. Never saw anything,
Nothing. Yeah, yeah.
which led me to believe, and you could comment on this if you want to, that Sasquatch reveals himself, herself to only certain people, and you kind of have to be ready for it. And I wasn't ready for it, you
Oh,
know?
yes,
Does that
exactly.
make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I like everything that I've shared to you. They invite the people that are ready to go down that path, and they follow them home, and they like I mean, your friend and then the friend that I brought up has smelled them in her car, has smelled them when she goes out to shopping, and her grandchildren who go through these experiences while they visit grandma have smelled them in the house and have smelled this at other places, so that they know that they're with them all the time, watching and learning.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Do you ever go, and I know this is coming up, do you ever go to the Sasquatch Summit at Lake Quinault?
I've been there a couple of times, yes.
Yeah, and I find that pretty interesting. Well, I don't want to keep, you've got other things to do besides talk to me for the rest of the night, but I really appreciate you coming on our show. We'll put it on YouTube, and I'll when that gets edited, and we do minimal editing, but that's where we put it. I'll send you a link to that. But I really want to thank you for coming on the show with us. And if you're ever in the Olympia, Washington area, stop by and say hello.
Okay.
It's been a very interesting time that we spent together. So thanks, Mel, very much for your
Well,
time.
we do some stuff down in Packwood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're interested in speaking into Packwood, then you're more than welcome to come down. It's usually, this year's is going to be somewhere around June 24th, somewhere around there.
So it's kind of like a Sasquatch Summit or Bigfoot conference. Or,
Well, it's a town hall,
oh,
and the people that I invite, we just give them a place to stay. They're provided a meal, and we don't pay them for anything. Just come on, share our views and everything with everybody, and listen. There's a lot of stuff going down in Packwood.
I
so,
bet.
so we
So if you would let me know when that is, maybe I'll be able to get down there. That
okay,
sounds like it'd be interesting.
okay.
All right, Mel, thank you very much. And I'm going to end the recording now, but I appreciate your time. And I think this will be a very interesting show.
All right. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Anytime.